And we are back on the air for our weekly live chat with the phenomenal Jason Spiess. Good morning, Jason. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Good morning. Good morning. Just pouring myself a cup of coffee here as I get ready to talk a little Black Hills and Beyond radio. So what's how's the weather down in the beautiful Black Hills? I miss it already.
Well, for me personally, it's confusing because I feel like it just changes so quickly, and I'm supposed to tell everyone what's happening with it. But currently, it looks beautiful out my window, and I will always be thankful for that.
Changes so frequently. Well, that's not a bad thing, I guess. But
no.
So, yeah, it sounds like the energy market there. Hey, smooth transition. That's why they pay me the little bucks, because I can make smooth transitions like that. But there's a lot of course, uncertainty out in the energy sector right now. Was having a conversation with a gentleman this morning, in fact, having to deal with the $600 a week that's going away. And, for a lot of people out there, that's going to really change their lifestyle quite a bit. And whether they're, going to continue to get it after this or not, no idea. But fact of the matter is, for a lot of people, it probably, in some cases, increased their quality of life a little bit. And so not only are they going to have to go back, but they're going to have to go probably backwards, because an extra, $2,400 a month, plus whatever the unemployment benefits were on top of that. And then if you had any other income on top of that, some people, I know some people had their best year ever and they didn't work. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of happens. So we talked about that this week on the Crude Life, just some of the realities that are coming. And, like, for example, Luke Daniels, he's with Corewell Commercial Capital. We really talked about the international investments that are going on here and how the culture in some companies is really going to change. When you take a look at China, for example, let's pick on China, easy to pick on China, but there's really some cultural differences there. And you can go YouTube and Google this for yourself, but watch a interview with the president of China. And I think it's a president, I don't know, prime minister. I honestly, I don't know China's politics. I know they have an election and they elect the Communist Party. Well, elected, air quotes. And, yeah, well, it's like everything, they have their own problems, but their leadership in this interview I saw with the president of China essentially was making fun of Americans for having a Christian-based system, that we still have a system based on Christian values, and whether it be Hindu or a lot of the, other religions that are probably non-Christian related, there's a centralized golden rule: do unto others as you'd want do unto yourself, and let's base some 10 commandments in there type of a thing. And a lot of the United States government's based on that. Even though it was founded against the oppression of religion, a lot of humanity and the core principles of religion is what the United States is kind of I guess influenced by, if you will. Well, he was just laughing at us for that. And that's a real direct difference when you govern with a, sterile, non-humanitarian point of view versus the United States, which, for all of our problems, we at least still try to be humanitarians. Whether we do it or not, it's a different story, but at least we try to. And when you take a look at that, and when you've got Chinese companies going into North Dakota and down into Texas, I'm not sure about Wyoming, but Oklahoma, and they're buying companies, that's going to integrate in a new culture when you have companies that are foreign buying American companies right now, left and right. And you take a look at Lake Charles, Louisiana, where we've talked about this on our programs in the past, and we revisit this conversation on the Crude Life this week, which is, there's a company from France building a petrochemical plant, or they were building a petrochemical plant down in Lake Charles, Louisiana, because it's cheaper to create and manufacture and produce the LNG and the petrochemicals that are needed over in France and just ship it over there by barge, because over in Europe, natural gas runs about 15, 18 bucks. And over here, it's like $1, $2, $3. So when you start having some slanted economics like that, and you have this globalization happening, boy, you're going to have some real different times, both from the employment side and from the culture side of things. So getting back to my original point about some of the unemployment dollars running out and a few other things, the easy answer is go get a job. Okay, well, let's talk about that. What jobs are available right now? There's not much. Outside of being an attorney or being an accountant or being a politician, you don't really have a stable job right now. And so when you look at that, well, okay, you're going to go work at the Amazon Fulfillment Center, go work at a grocery store maybe. So there's the jobs that are available aren't, great jobs right now. And a lot of them are really kind of controlled by the government. So this is going to be a very interesting fall as these stimulus packages start to run out and they start to argue a little bit more about it. And I saw a headline where Trump is like, what did he say? He's going to give a whopper of a check, or it's going to be a big check this time, a stimulus package. And I thought, oh yeah, right before the election, that's smart. Just increase the stimulus amount there, but it's not going to solve the problem. And the problem is the economy is really going to go through a very big growing pain. I saw yesterday where Disney announced layoffs are coming this fall. We've got Shale that they just posted an $18 billion loss this week. These are global companies that are basically telling everybody, heads up, there's going to be some tough times coming. So when you put all this together with the, COVID-19 fall season meets the flu season, and, it's going to be some different times, some very different times happening. So, it's kind of hunker down time a little bit, I think, honestly, to where I see a lot of people out having fun and spending money. And I'm posting some Facebook photos of me out in Wyoming and Black Hills and Colorado. But that was, my speaking. That was my speaking part. That was, I was working actually. So you're going to see more of that. People doing more working vacations as they can go remotely and, that sort of thing. But different times out there. But again, at the end of the day, there's always this to remember. They just pumped $7 trillion into the economy. So there is money out there. You just got to go find it. It's just hard to maneuver right now for a lot of different people. So the quick and nimble are the ones that are going to be able to maneuver pretty good here as we go forward. So I'll shut up now and let you chime in if you'd like to do that.
Yep. Well, I did notice that it said that the unemployment rates are going down, but no, I agree. It'll be very, very interesting to see how everything proceeds from here, because there's just a lot of questions, and unfortunately, I've come to a place where I don't really trust what people are saying at face value, regardless. So, because of the motivations that can be behind it, creative wording, that type of thing, and so it'll be very interesting to see how everything plays out. I myself, I wouldn't know the answer to fix it all. That's for sure.
That's interesting. They're talking about unemployment going down. That is it's, to me, it's very interesting that they're even looking at anything like that, considering there's the PPP money is still being extended, and they're still giving that out and doing a number of different things like that, because that's causing more problems than it's fixing, and that's becoming very apparent. And that's not a political statement. That's more evidential statement. There's more and more evidence coming out every week that the PPP is causing more problems than it is solving solutions. It's just because you kick a can down the road doesn't mean you took care of a problem.
Right. Well, see, if you're talking about on the federal level, based on what I've read, I would imagine that it's probably not helping as much, because the money wasn't going to the right people, wasn't going to the actual small businesses who needed it.
Mm-hmm.
There were corporations that were getting bailed out. On a statewide level, I know that they, for example, we just had the Wyoming Business Council CEO Josh Durrell talking on air with us yesterday about the state using some of their CARES money to actually get, portions of that money into the hands of the business owner. And so I know that probably on a local or state level is probably where the actual help is going to be. But I have to wonder if maybe it was ineffective, so to speak, because of where it was going, or the implementation, I guess. You know what I mean? Because even if they say that this money is still going to be out there and readily available, that's not a guarantee that it's actually going to be out there and available to the people that they say that it's going to be, at least per my perspective on this, from what I've seen so far.
I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe they're going to do anything any different. Everything that I've seen, that I've read, the same people are going to get the money first. And I mean, at a state level, at a local level, at a federal level, I don't see how it's going to be any different. Especially if they're going to keep administering it the way that they're administering it, because they're basically just giving it out and then they're going back and then seeing if they needed it later. Instead of saying, okay, tell us first, how were you impacted? I mean, I can't believe that these banks aren't being held accountable for giving out millions and millions of dollars to businesses that didn't need it, when there are businesses that truly, truly needed the money and applied for it and, were approved and still haven't gotten anything. I talked to a woman yesterday, 72 years old. She still hasn't gotten her stimulus check of $1,200 that people got back in April. Right. So they still haven't even gotten money into the people who need it. And they're already talking about forgiving the first round of money that they're not being transparent about. And they're talking about giving more money to the same people who already got it. But the Lakers don't have enough money. They need more money. So it's very concerning to me. And a lot of the state packages I've noticed too are very friendly to the real estate owners. So the individuals that have had access to the appointed officials who have access to government money would then get preferential treatment by the banks for the last 20 years. So if you had a government contract given to you primarily by an appointed leader, you got really good velvet glove treatment by the banks. And the banks were the ones that administered the funds during the last bailout. So it was very much, if you had a good relationship with a bank, you got bailed out first. I don't understand the criteria, why and how the banks administered who they felt was deemed the most worthy. But there's a new story every day about a guy buying a Ferrari, a guy going to Vegas, some company getting 3-4 different loans, that sort of thing. So it had nothing to do with who needed it. So that's what worries me, is that there's no evidence that leads me to believe the local levels are going to operate any different.
Well, I'm hoping, just for the sake of positivity, that you are not correct on that. But basically, it just kind of reaffirms how I feel about our monetary system in general. I personally feel that if we were to make ourselves more of a contribution society, you know what I mean, just to contribute, to do things for each other because it's the right thing to do, right? Just a little bit of contribution, and that is how we will end up being able to pull ourselves out of this. So, for example, right now, and I feel this is to be a beautiful thing, but the shopping in the local area, keeping the money in with the locally owned or small-owned businesses, you know what I'm saying? And that, I think, will probably be a bigger help than any of these loans probably ever could, just because of the fine print or the system that I don't understand the system either.
Well, I feel for all the local businesses, because they're in a very similar boat with a lot of us, because a lot of them are forced to shut down by the government. So not only did they get basically shut down or told to close their doors, their competition was allowed to stay open, and their competition got money. So it's a well. Look at Amazon. You saw how much money Amazon made. He had his best quarter ever during the pandemic. Best quarter ever during the pandemic. And go ask all your local businesses how they did. So the government gave people a stimulus check, and the only place that people could spend it was Walmart and Amazon and Target. That's it. Every other business was told to be shut down, and they couldn't. And a lot of the business couldn't have opened their doors anyways because people were told to stay home. So even if they would have opened their doors, it would have been a negative for the day because there's nobody available out there. There's no consumers. And it was we talked about this with the curbside with the restaurants. That's a great gesture and it's great, but it's not the same as having a packed house. It's not the same as having prime rib night, pumping out 40 prime ribs. That's not the same. And
no, you are right.
And that's where as much as I love to live in the planet of platitudes, unfortunately for somebody like myself, I do have to live in the realm of reality. And right now, leadership needs to live in the realm of reality instead of going around spouting all this like I say, the planet of platitudes stuff. These guys are getting paid regardless. These appointed leaders, again, appointed leaders from the elected leaders, they're getting their checks regardless. So they don't care what they say. They're getting their checks. They're going there. I'll tell you what, 5 o'clock, that whistle blows. They're Fred Flintstone down the tail. Woohoo, baby, it's the weekend. It's a different story if you're a trucker out there, or you're a small business owner out there trying to figure out how am I going to make it. And oh, by the way, now the $600 runs out for a lot of people. Keep in mind, like for me, I haven't gotten the $600 or anything like that, so I've had to make it on my own, and so I know what I'm talking about here. But for a lot of these people, they're going to have some real problems. And these are people that are just living check to check, squeaking by, and all of a sudden now they're not going to have $2,400 a month out of the thin blue sky. And a guy who's getting a check every single week is going around saying, hey, everything's going to be good. We got to just, stay positive and remain hopeful. Well, that's easy for him to say because he's getting paid. And like I said, when that whistle blows at 5 o'clock, he's Fred Flintstone down the tail, getting in and having a good weekend. The rest of America isn't going through that right now. So we're not all in this together. And there are some people that are going to have some real problems real soon. And we talked about this before. And I'm sorry to be so negative today, but it's been a long week, and I've heard a lot of stories, and a lot of people are really worried about what's going on. And they're starting to see that for some reason, the same people seem to get bailed out all the time. And they're not ever having to experience real life problems. So it's, anyway, interesting times right now. I see where the sheep market is going through some things too. We can talk about that next week as well. They're trying to shut down the one in Greeley, Colorado, actually. Right down the road, yeah.
I think I heard mention of that, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's big national news. I mean, even our senators and congressmen are jumping in on it as well. Because North Dakota, in Hettinger, we've got a sheep shearing school, one of 6 left in the country. So I'm a big supporter of the lamb and wool industry. That's anytime you can give. Have you ever been around a lamb or a sheep when they get a haircut? Boy, you can just feel that energy. They're so happy. I mean, they'd do cartwheels if they could. I think, anyways. But so it's kind of a fun thing.
Well, yeah, I will love to hear more about that next week.
Oh yes, sheep stories are always a lot of fun. We had 3 when I was a kid. We had a little bit of a hobby farm, I guess you want to call it that. So I kind of grew up around a few animals. It was kind of fun, but yeah, I didn't mean to be so negative. But it's just when you've got Chevron laying off 80% of their employees after a merger or a buyout, when in the past that would be over a 2 to 4 year period, when they're just doing it the next day. And you got Shale posting $18 billion. And like I said, Disney came out yesterday and said, hey, get ready for a massive amount of layoffs. People need to prepare. And I'm not trying to be negative. What I'm trying to be is I'm trying to say, listen, there's things going on here. And the government is changing. There's a shift going on. And if they're not really paying attention to the small mom and pops, and they call the Lakers and Ruth Chris a small business now, things are changing and they're getting people more accustomed to getting government checks. And that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And once the PPP runs out and the auto body shop no longer can afford the 30 employees and has to cut down to 10, those 20 people are now going to go on the government check too, because there's no other opportunities out there. Because you can only put a certain amount of people in an Amazon fulfillment center, and they've got robots doing that stuff now. So it's a different world we're going into. It's a very different world. It's a quarantine world. It's a subsidized world. It's a people relying on government checks world. And that is becoming more of the new norm, actually. And we're going to continue to look for stories that are not that, though. and we found a couple. So anyway, that's a little ominous this week. Bum, bum, bum. You got to get some music. We got to have some music, you know?
You're right. I do. I need to get better about my my hotkeys here.
Hey, by the way, if you want, say our live recording sessions are really kind of taking off a little popularity, kind of fun. And if we want to do one down there in the Belle Fourche area, let us know. Let me know. You know, we'll come down and have some people come by as guests, and we'll just do a whole morning.
Well, that sounds like fun to me.
Yeah, maybe at that credit union place or somewhere else. You know, just kind of get sales on that. That should be something that's engaging and fun. And I'll bring donuts.
All right, sounds good. We'll see what we can put together.
Sweet.
It's always awesome talking with you, Jason. Thank you.
You bet. This week, folks, the crudelife.com. Right now, we're putting together the live recording session. We're getting that available. That'll be on this weekends, but we've got interviews available from throughout the week. A lot of international talk this week, actually, to be honest, because it's happening. It's happening. Like I said, as soon as I saw Chevron laid off 80%, and they basically are doing that overnight without, rolling it over several years, the change is happening very rapidly. And, it's like going from horse to automobile. It's going to be that kind of a different thing. You got to remember, big data next week. Let's talk big data. And okay. I'm going to explain how big data is going to change the way we do things, because we're not that far away from having to check in on our phones every morning where we're going to go so that we don't bump into each other with COVID. I mean, China's already doing it. North Dakota governor's promoting it. We're not that far away from that, and that's big data. And we'll talk about that next week, because that is the new normal. Big data, facial recognition, just all kind. That is the new norm now. So
nightmares.
What
all right.
The nightmare? Whatever. I mean, that's the way it is. That's the American dream, right? That's what everybody wanted. That's what you've been paying your politicians to do. That's the life that they've created for us. So that's hey, we got exactly what we paid for.
Yeah.
Right? I know.
Well,
so with that,
yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
Just go tubing in the Spearfish Creek today and have some fun.
Right. Go enjoy some of the sunshine while we've got it.
Well, I know I'm bringing my Chesapeake Bay Mermaid Retriever. I'm bringing her out to some water today, because it's going to be a nice day here in the Dakotas. So we're going to have some good times and all that fun stuff. So we'll catch you next week. And in the meantime, go to thecrudelife.com.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jason.